Good Thursday morning, my friends. My name is Melissa from Melissa's Struggling Walk with Jesus. I am here this beautiful Thursday morning to share the Word of God with you. I am using the Amplified Holy Bible and the Navigator's Bible reading plan, and in this video I am going to be sharing from the book of 2 Kings, chapter 4 and 5. So chapter 4, the title is The Widow's Oil, and it says, "Now one of the wives of a man of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha for help, saying, 'Your servant my husband is dead, and you know that your servant reverently feared the Lord. But the creditor is coming to take my 2 sons to be his slaves in payment for a loan.' Elisha said to her, 'What shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have of value in the house?' And she said, 'Your maidservant has nothing in the house except a small jar of olive oil.' And then he said, 'Go, borrow containers from all your neighbors, empty containers, and not just a few. Then you shall go in and shut the door behind you and your sons, and pour out the oil you have into all these containers, and you shall set aside each one when it is full.' And so she left him and shut the door behind her and her sons, and they were bringing her the containers as she poured the oil. And when the containers were all full, she said to her son, 'Bring me another container.' And he said to her, 'There is not a one left.' And then the oil stopped multiplying. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, 'Go, sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons can live on the rest.'" All right, in the verse 7 verses. In verse 1, where it says sons of the prophets, for example, this is a group or an association of prophets. All right, starting with verse 8, the title goes into the Shunammite woman, and it says, "Now there came a day when Elisha went over to Shunem, where there was a prominent and influential woman, and she persuaded him to eat a meal. And afterward, whenever he passed by, he stopped there for a meal. And she said to her husband, 'Behold, I sense that this is a holy man of God who frequently passes our way. Please let us make a small, fully walled upper room on the housetop, and put a bed there for him, with a table, a chair, and a lampstand. Then whenever he comes to visit us, he can turn in there.' One day he came there and turned in to the upper room and lay down to rest. And he said to Gehazi his servant, 'Call this Shunammite.' So he called her, and she stood before him. Now he said to Gehazi, 'Say to her now, you have gone to all this trouble for us. What can I do to you or for you? Would you like to be mentioned to the king or to the captain of the army?' She answered, 'I live among my own people in peace and security and need no special favors.'" Verse 14, later Elisha said, "What then is to be done for her?" And Gehazi answered, "Well, she has no son, and her husband is old." And he said, "Call her." So Gehazi called her, and she came and stood in the doorway. And Elisha said, "At this season next year, you will embrace a son." She said, "No, my lord, O man of God, do not lie to your maidservant." But the woman conceived and gave birth to a son at that season the next year, just as Elisha had said to her. All right, so The Shunammite woman is in 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 8 through 17. So now we're going to talk about the Shunammite son in 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 18 through 37. Verse 18. When the child was grown, the day had come that he went out to his father to the reapers. But he said to his father, "My head, my head." And the man said to his servant, "Carry him to his mother." And when he had carried and brought him to his mother, he sat on her lap until noon, and then he died. In verse 20, where it says died. So because her faith in God led her to expect a miracle from Elisha, the woman apparently kept the death secret from her husband and the entire household. So verse 21, she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and shut the door of the small upper room behind him and left. Then she called to her husband and said, "Please send me one of the servants and one of the donkeys, so that I may run to the man of God and return." And he said, "Why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath." And she said, "It will be all right." Then she saddled the donkey and said to her servant, "Drive the animal fast. Do not slow down the pace for me unless I tell you." So she set out and came to the man of God at Mount Carmel. And when the man of God saw her at a distance, he said to Gehazi his servant, "Look, there is the Shunammite woman. Please run now to meet her and ask her, 'Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child?' And she answered, 'It is well.' And when she came to the mountain to the man of God, she took hold of his feet. Gehazi approached to push her away, but the man of God said, 'Let her alone. For her soul is desperate and troubled within her, and the Lord has hidden the reason from me and has not told me.' Then she said, 'Did I ask for a son from my Lord? Did I not say, do not give me false hope?' Then he said to Gehazi, 'Gird up your loins, prepare now, and take my staff in your hand, and go to the woman's house. If you meet any man along the way, do not greet him, and if a man greets you, do not stop to answer him, and lay my staff on the face of the boy as soon as you reach the house.' The mother of the child said, 'As the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you.' So Elisha arose and followed her. Gehazi went on ahead of them and laid the staff on the boy's face. But there was no sound or response from the boy. So he turned back to meet Elisha and told him, 'The boy has not awakened, revived.' Then Elisha came into the house. The child was dead and lying on his bed. So he went in, shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. Then he went up and lay on the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his heads, and his hands on his hands. And as he stretched himself out on him and held him, the boy's skin became warm. Check out 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 21, my friends. Verse 35. Then he returned and walked in the house once back and forth, and went up again, and stretched himself out on him. And the boy sneezed 7 times, and he opened his eyes. Then Elisha called Gehazi and said, 'Call this Shunammite.' So he called her, and when she came to him, he said, 'Pick up your son.' She came and fell at his feet, bowing herself to the ground in respect and gratitude. Then she picked up her son and left. So in verses 18 through 37, in verse 20, because her faith in God led her to expect a miracle from Elisha, the woman apparently kept the death secret from her husband and the entire house. In verse 29, gird up your loins, this is a phrase often found in the Bible. It's an urgent call to get ready for immediate action, or it may be a call to prepare for a coming action or event. The phrase is related to the type of clothing worn in ancient times to keep from impeding the wearing during any vigorous activity, for example, a battle, exercise, strenuous work, etc. The loose ends of the garments, the tunics, the cloaks, and the mantles had to be gathered up and tucked into the girdle. The girdle was a band around about 6 inches wide that had fasteners in front. It was worn around the loins, the midsection of the body, between the lower ribs and the hips, and was normally made of leather. Expensive or embroidered girdles were also worn and were made of cotton, flax, or silk. And the girdle also served as a kind of pocket or a pouch, and it was used to carry personal items such as a dagger, money, or other necessary things. All right, so starting with 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 38 is the poisonous stew, my friends. So Elisha came back to Gilgal during a famine in the land, and the sons of the prophets were sitting before him. And he said to his servants, put on the large pot and cook stew for the sons of the prophets. Then one of them went into the field to gather herbs and found a wild vine and gathered from it a lapful of wild gourds and came and cut them up into the pot of stew, although they did not know what they were. So they served it for the men to eat, but as they ate the stew, they cried out, O man of God, there is death in the pot, and they could not eat it. But he said, bring flour, and he threw it into the pot and said, serve it for the people, so that they may eat. Then there was nothing harmful in the pot. Now at another time, a man from Baal Shalisha came and brought the man of God bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley bread, and fresh ears of grain in the husk in his sack. And Elisha said, give it to the people affected by the famine, so that they may eat. And his servant said, how am I to set only this before 100 hungry men? And he said, give it to the people so that they may eat. For thus says the Lord, they shall eat and have some left. So he set it before them, and they ate and left some in accordance with the word of the Lord. All right. In verse 41, the flour itself had no power except as a symbol of God's miraculous healing. We are going to move on now in this video to 2 Kings chapter 5. The first 14 verses, the title is Naaman is healed. Excuse me. And it says, now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Aram, Syria, was considered a great man by his king and was highly respected because through Naaman the Lord had given victory to Aram, which is Syria. He was also a man of courage, but he was a leper. Now the Arameans, the Syrians, had gone out in bands as raiders and had taken captive a little girl from the land of Israel. And she waited on Naaman's wife as a servant. she said to her mistress, I wish that my master Naaman were with the prophets, who is in Samaria. Then he would heal him of his leprosy. Naaman went in and told his master the king, the girl who is from the land of Israel said such and such. Then the king of Aram, Syria, said, Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel, Jehoram, the son of Ahab. So he left and took with him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 shekels of gold and 10 changes of clothing. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, and it said, And now when this letter comes to you, I will have sent my servant Naaman to you, so that you may heal him of his leprosy. And when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes in shock and outrage at the request, and said, Am I God, to kill and to make alive, that this man sends to me a request to heal a man of his leprosy? Just consider what he is asking, and see how he is seeking an opportunity for a battle with me. Now when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent word to the king asking, Why have you torn your clothes? Just let Naaman come to me, and he shall know that there is a true prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and stopped at the entrance of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and wash your flesh will be restored to you, and you will be clean. But Naaman was furious and went away and said, Indeed, I thought he would at least come out to see me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, and have his hand over the place of leprosy and heal the leper. Are not Abana the Parphor, the rivers of Damascus and Aram, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage. Then the servants approached and said to him, My father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then, when he has said to you, Wash and be clean? So he went down and plunged himself into the Jordan 7 times, just as the man of God had said, and his flesh was restored like that of a little child, and he was clean. Can we just see how Naaman, through his anger and his frustration, because it wasn't done in such a fancy way, almost gave up the miracle from God? All right, in verse 1 where it says leper, the Hebrew word translated leprosy actually is a general term for a skin disease. And whether true leprosy, which is Hansen's disease, or a lesser disease is in view depends on the context. It is likely that Naaman suffered from leprosy because both the girl in verse 3 and Jehoram in verse 7 seem to think that only a miracle can cure him. All right, in verse 6, it is clear from Jehoram's reaction in verse 7 that the letter expressly asked him to heal Naaman. It is possible that there was a misunderstanding on Naaman's part or on the part of the Aramean king. More likely, the language of the request was in accordance with the royal protocol, giving credit for the healing to the king of Israel, who it was expected would send Naaman to Elisha and not take the request literally. And in verse 7, it was a religious obligation among the Jews to tear one's clothing as a sign of grief, or of horror and outrage over blasphemy. Here, Jehoram the king does it because he has been asked to perform something which only God can do. All right, so starting with verse 15, the title goes into Gehazi's creed. And so that's how we will finish out chapter 5. And it says, Then Naaman returned to the man of God, he and all the people in his group, and stood before him. He said, Behold, I know that there is no God in all the earth, except in Israel. So now accept a blessing and gift from your servant. But Elisha said, As the Lord lives, before whom I stand, I will accept nothing. He urged him to take it, but Elisha refused. Naaman said, If not, then please let your servant be given a load of earth for a team of mules. For from this day on your servant will no longer offer a burnt offering, nor a sacrifice to other gods, but only to the Lord, the God of Israel. In this matter may the Lord pardon your servant, when my master the king goes into the house of his god Rimmon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow in the house of Rimmon. When I bow down in the house of Rimmon, may the Lord pardon your servant in this matter of attending the kings when he worships. Elisha said to him, Go in peace. So Naaman departed and was a good distance away from him. When Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, My master has spared this Naaman the Aramean, the Syrian, by not accepting from him what he brought. As the Lord lives, I will run after him and get something from him. Gehazi should not have done that. So Gehazi pursued Naaman, and when Naaman saw someone running after him, he got down from the chariot to meet him and said, Is all well? And he said, All is well. My master has sent me to say, Just now 2 young men of the sons of the prophets have come to me from the hill country of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of clothes. Naaman said, Please take 2 talents. And he urged him to accept, and tied up 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of clothes, and gave them to 2 of his servants, and they carried them in front of Gehazi. And when he came to the hill, he took them from their hand and put them in the house for safekeeping. And he sent the men away, and they left. Then he went in and stood before his master. Elisha asked him, Where have you been, Gehazi? And he said, Your servant went nowhere. He lied. Elisha said to him, Did my heart not go with you when the man turned from his chariot to meet you? Is it a proper time to accept money and clothing and olive orchards and vineyards and sheep and oxen and male and female servants? Therefore, the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and to your descendants forever. So Gehazi departed from his presence a leper as white as snow. Check out Exodus chapter 4, verse 6, and Numbers chapter 12, verse 10, my friends. And that is all of 2 Kings chapter 4 and 5, my friends. Excuse me. In verse 17, where it says, Earth for a team of mules. In the ancient world, pagans believed a god could not only be worshipped on the native soil of the nation which he served, and Naaman wanted the soil for an altar. Check out Exodus chapter 20, verse 24. So that he could worship God in Aram, in Syria. And in verse 22, where it says a talent of silver, this is about 60 pounds.